Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video we're taking a look at a newly buffed Pokemon in the Ultra League, and that is Shadow Typhlosion. Shadow Typhlosion's fast move Incinerate now does 20 base damage instead of 15, and that increase in damage, combining with Typhlosion's attack stat and the fact that it's a Shadow, this thing will output massive damage. I was intrigued by Typhlosion because looking at PV Poke in the 1-0 shield, like in a closing situation, it has a 97.9% win rate, so I wanted to test it out and see does it live up to the hype. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and let's check out Shadow Typhlosion in the Ultra League. Hopping into the first match, picking up a positive lead, Guzzlord into Talonflame. And you may notice, this is not the typical Guzzlord moveset. I am actually running Sludge Bomb on the Guzzlord, specifically because the entire team is super weak to Tapu Fini. I'm going to now save switch into the Skeledirge. Opponent is going to counter switch into their Jellicent. Jellicent fires off a charge move, but this is only 4 hexes. This can only be a Surf, and Surf is not a problem for the Skeledirge. I'm farming up, and I'm firing off the Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball definitely going to hurt here. Opponent is going to respect it with a shield. Opponent overfarms, and they allow me to make it to another Shadow Ball. This Shadow Ball is going to get them deep into the red. Jellicent looking for the farm down, but the Skeledirge says no, making it to the Disarming Voice, and the opponent lets it go, losing a massive amount of energy on the Jellicent. Back in comes the Talonflame. Talonflame has energy, but I have that shield advantage, and with the shield advantage, we've talked about Shadow Typhlosion is incredibly deadly. Typhlosion is going to be shielding up the fly. I'm farming up, going for the Blast Burn, and that is a CMP tie that Typhlosion is going to win. Blast Burn gets the KO. In the back, it's Galarian Wheezing, and Shadow Typhlosion is about to go off. This Brutal Swing not going to be enough to KO. Typhlosion able to withstand that damage, and with the Water-type Jellicent out of the way, Typhlosion able to fire off the Blast Burn, grab the shield, and I can shield the Brutal Swing, and I have the Blast Burn charged up, and this is going to be massive overkill onto the Galarian Wheezing, so Shadow Typhlosion in game number 1 is able to take the win. Moving into the next match, picking up a tough lead Guzzlord into Cresselia. I'm going to stay in this matchup to start, however. I'm going to farm up 4 Dragon Tails, wait a turn, switch into the Skeledirge, and not only do I get the catch, but I get the Incinerate through as well. Moonblast not going to do a whole lot. In comes Shadow Charizard. I'm farming up. Opponent has enough for the Blast Burn here. Blast Burn would do quite a lot of damage. And again, my goal is to try and get Typhlosion into that 1-0 shield situation. So I'm going to shield once. I should be able to make it to double Shadow Ball before the opponent is able to make it to their next Blast Burn. And I am able to make it to Shadow Ball number 2 here. And this is going to be grabbing the final shield from the opponent. And from here, I'm just not going to be shielding the Dirge. Opponent is going to play to the CMP tie, understanding that they win it, and this Dragon Claw will be enough to knock out. I'm just going to send in the Guzzlord. Opponent, understanding that I had the move loaded, fires off their energy right away, but I actually decide to go for the extra. I want to guarantee this Dragon Claw will KO, and an extra Dragon Tail will help that be the case. Dragon Claw will get the knockout. Opponent sends in Cresselia. I send in the Shadow Typhlosion, and in the back, it's Talonflame. Talonflame, of course, with the new move of Fly, as well as they have a boosted Incinerate as well. But look at the damage from the Shadow Typhlosion. They're going to be firing off the Flame Charge here. Can they make it to the Fly? No, they get incinerated down by the Shadow Typhlosion. And Typhlosion, again, in that 1-0 shield scenario, so deadly. Able to land not 1, but 2 Blast Burns. Everything working out perfectly in this game as Shadow Typhlosion takes the win. Hopping into the next match, picking up a very tough lead, Guzzlord into Virizion. 2 better responses in the back, so I save switch into Skeledirge, and my opponent is going to respond with Greedent. Greedent firing off the Crunch. They don't have the greatest charge move timing, so I am able to get most of it Incinerate for free. Unfortunately, my defense does get debuffed, so this is going to be a tough fight. I fire off the Disarming Voice. Opponent is going to no shield. They're farming up, and they're at another Crunch. I am going to commit a shield because I would love to make a play for switch advantage. In seasons past, this would typically have a Steelix in the back, but I'm not expecting it, as that would make the team triple weak to Talonflame. I'm going to fire off the Disarming Voices back to back here. A Mudshot does sneak for free, but I just need damage onto the Greedent. I decide to make a bit of an interesting play here. I decide to commit a shield for switch. Opponent, I'm pretty sure, had the Crunch. They just threw the Body Slam, and in the back, I can't believe it. It's a Steelix. Steelix got incredibly nerfed, and fire types are super strong. But the opponent still running the team from last season that is triple weak to fire. I'm forced to send in the Guzzlord to absorb energy, and then hope that Typhlosion, without a shield, can put in work. Unfortunately, I do get debuffed by the Breaking Swipe. Opponent is going to be firing off their energy here. I'm looking to switch into Typhlosion. These Shadow Incinerates absolutely melting. They're going to fire off a last second move, but it's not going to matter too much as I can tank the Breaking Swipe and I don't get debuffed. That's big. Oh my goodness. Not getting debuffed there is massive. Blast Burn will connect. Virizion trying for the KO. Is this going to be enough to KO here? Sacred Sword barely does not. The opponent threw on alignment and it cost them. Shadow Typhlosion KOs the Virizion on 1 HP and takes the win. Moving into the next match and picking up an incredibly tough lead, leading Guzzlord into Wheezing. I'm going to save switch into the Skeledirge. They're staying in here. They bank a ton of energy and then send in the Tapu Fini. The good news is I had to bait this out. This would absolutely crush the Typhlosion in the back. But the bad news is they have a ton of energy stored on that Wheezing. They're firing off a Surf here. Surf would not KO, so I am actually going to let this through. Skeledirge, able to withstand that damage, and I'm going for the Shadow Ball here. I want to guarantee switch or a shield. I get a shield from my opponent. They're going to leave with some energy on the Tapu Fini, and unfortunately, Sludge Bomb not the most useful here because they're already in a range where I can probably do enough Dragon Tails to get a knockout with a Dragon Claw. They go for the Moonblast. I'm looking to massively overfarm with the Guzzlord, and I am going to fire off the Dragon Claw. This will be lethal. That Wheezing's going to be a problem. It has a lot of energy. The one good thing is that a lot of Wheezings as of late have been running Brutal Swing and Overheat, which means their energy would actually be walled here. That's kind of what I have to hope for. So I'm just going to let this through, hoping it's going to be a Brutal Swing or an Overheat. It's a Play Rough. I send in the Shadow Typhlosion. Typhlosion continuing to farm. Opponent firing off the Brutal Swing. I'm going to let this through. Oh, it's actually the Overheat. And in the back, it's a Tentacruel. And this is where, if it was the 1-0, I could put in work. But they have a shield remaining. They can shield up the Solar Beam. And I resign the match. Picking up a tough lead in the next match, Guzzlord into Shadow Wall Rain. Immediate save switch into the Skeledirge. Opponent staying in this matchup with the Wall Rain, so it looks like they do not have a great response available to Skeledirge. In that case, I'm going to go for a bait. Disarming Voice bait gets the shield. This is enough for the Earthquake. I decide to shield back, and they bait as well. That's extremely unfortunate. I'm going to farm up. I'm at the Shadow Ball. You know what? I'm going for another bait. Let's see what they want to do. They want to double shield. So they do not have a great response to energy from Skeledirge. This is enough for another Earthquake. And we've had 4 baits so far in this match. Every bait has been shielded. I go for the Disarming Voice. Opponent makes a very well-timed catch onto the Talonflame. Not only getting the catch, but they get the free Incinerate as well. I'm going to re-bank the Disarming Voice for later and send in the Guzzlord. Whatever they throw, I can tank this move. Brave Bird or Fly, it's not going to matter. They go for the Fly. That does some solid damage. They can go for Fly number 2, but the important thing is I'm going to be able to survive this. And now I can throw 3 Dragon Tails, which means I'm going to have a Dragon Claw to KO the Talonflame, and I'm going to have a Dragon Claw for whatever my opponent decides to send in here. Let's see what they want to do. It's a Charizard. Okay, so running a double Fire Flying strategy. They're going to be able to get a pretty aggressive farm down here, which is a bit awkward. I do have energy on the Skeledirge, as well as I do have a full health Typhlosion. So let's send in the Typhlosion. Opponent accidentally throws on alignment, giving an entire free Incinerate to the Typhlosion. In comes the Wall Rain, and Wall Rain will immediately be met with a Blast Burn. Blast Burn is going to get the knockout. Back in comes the Charizard. Charizard, it's not going to happen, as they're going to be met with a second Blast Burn. They do not get the farm down, and Shadow Typhlosion takes the win. The tough leads continue for Guzzlord as I lead Guzzlord into Poliwrath. Not a great spot to be in. I'm going to save switch into the Skeledirge, and the opponent is going to respond with Drapion. So my guess is they're probably running the Poliwrath double Dark Poison line. They go for the Crunch. That does massive damage, and I'm going to be firing off the Disarming Voice. Disarming Voice will hit for neutral damage. Not the strongest move ever since it doesn't get same type attack bonus, and my opponent is going to be firing off energy. I commit the shield. They go for the Crunch. I continue to farm up with the Skeledirge, and I'm going for another Disarming Voice. Looking to put some pressure onto my opponent here. They are going to commit the shield, Again, very nice charge move timing from my opponent, and I have a decision to make. I decide, you know what? Let's go for the farm down with a Shadow Typhlosion. A Shadow Typhlosion with energy is very deadly. In the back, they have a regular Skuntank. I'm farming up, and I'm going for the Blast Burn before they get to their move. Shadow Blast Burn, nearly one shot, switch into the Guzzlord, and get the snipe, denying their move. But now I have a Switch Lock Guzzlord going up against a Poliwrath, and this could get difficult. I fire off the Dragon Claw. Poliwrath is going to no-shield. Poliwrath now going to be firing off the Icy Wind. Icy Wind hitting for super effective damage and debuffing the Guzzlord. Guzzlord makes it to another Dragon Claw, but my opponent has no reason to shield here. They know what they have to fear is the energy from the Shadow Typhlosion, and this is looking difficult. I send in the Typhlosion. They have a shield. I have to either get a farm down or make it to the back-to-back moves. I call the Icy Wind bait. Am I going to make it to the back-to-back? No, I am not. Shadow Typhlosion just slightly too glassy, and my opponent gets the farm down. We cannot catch a break on the leads here. I lead into an Abomasnow, and the Skeleton save switch will be answered by the Shadow Drapion. Drapion fires off the Crunch. I'm firing off some energy with the Skeledirge, looking to put some pressure onto the Drapion. Drapion is going to let that through. Drapion farming up. I should be able to shield the Crunch, do one more Incinerate, and then go for the Disarming Voice. Oh no, but they have Aqua Tail. It's cheaper than Crunch, and they make another move. I should have thrown the Disarming Voice right away, but I accidentally clicked the Incinerate. So I win switch, but now I'm down 2 shields to 0. We'll have to see what they have in the back, because they're not sending in the Abomasnow. Okay, they send in Poliwrath. At the very least, I can hit for super effective damage here. Disarming Voice will be shielded. I farm up with the Skeledirge, and I'm going for another Disarming Voice into the Poliwrath. Disarming Voice will be shielded. Come on, Skeledirge. Skeledirge makes it to a third Disarming Voice, so I had to go down 2 shields, but the energy that I had is putting in a ton of work against the Poliwrath. Poliwrath will eventually get the double resisted counter farm down. I'm going to send in the Guzzlord just to force them to throw energy here. My win con is basically them switching into the Abomasnow. They go for the Icy Wind, and there it is, right on cue. In comes the Abomasnow, and they have switch locked an Abomasnow, and that is something they're about to regret. Look at the Incinerate damage from the Typhlosion, absolutely melting the Abomasnow. I'm gonna get the full farm down, and you already know what's about to happen. I leave with the Solar Beam. This is a Shadow Solar Beam, massive overkill, taking down the Poliwrath and taking the win. The tough leads continue in the next match. Guzzlord into Obstagoon. I'm going to throw one Dragon Tail, then save switch into the Skeledirge. I'm farming up with the Skeledirge. Very nice charge move timing from the opponent as they're going to fire off this Night Slash. Night Slash will connect. Opponent now going to send in Swampert, and this is what I need to bait out the Swampert with the Skeledirge, so hopefully Shadow Typhlosion can do well in the back. I'm farming up. Opponent not going to let me make the Disarming Voice as they throw on perfect timing, and the Hydro Cannon will secure the knockout. My opponent should be 7 off of the Earthquake here, so it all comes down to whether they get new mechanic, and they do not. So now I have a ton of energy, and now they're actually going to send in the Obstagoon and fire off their energy. This is fine. I'm going to try and save shields for the Typhlosion, and it's even better based on the fact that they do not have Cross Chop. They went for a Night Slash into a Dark type. I fire off this Dragon Claw. That will connect. I farm up. I go for the Dragon Claw, but my opponent makes a very nice switch, catching the Dragon Claw onto Cresselia. But Cresselia is not going to have a great day once they learn what's in back. In comes the Shadow Typhlosion. I bank the Dragon Claw for later so I can use it to potentially get rid of the Obstagoon. They go for the Moonblast as they are running Grass Knot. They are not running Future Sight. A second Moonblast would do quite a bit of damage to the Typhlosion. Again, Shadow Typhlosion is extremely glassy. My opponent does get the attack drop, but that's not going to save them from this Blast Burn getting the knockout. Blast Burn number 1 will be shielded. I continue to farm. Opponent firing off another charge move. I am going to let this through. It is going to be the Grass Knot. Opponent switches into the Goon. I'm only getting to 1 move, so I'm going for the Solar Beam. It's going to KO either way. The beam connects. In comes the Cresselia, and I send in the Guzzlord. Guzzlord farming up. Opponent probably going to Grass Knot bait here, but I have to shield in case they go for the Moonblast, and I am able to make it to the double Dragon Claw. Cresselia, the very bulky Mon, but it's low enough that a neutral Dragon Claw should be enough to KO, and despite the terrible leads we're seeing again and again and again, we're able to take the win. Hopping into the final match, and we've got one more bad lead for the road. Guzzlord into a Lowland Ninetales. I save switch into the Skeledirge. Opponent banks some energy and then brings in their own Dirge. Oh my goodness, they have zero response to a Skeledirge with energy. I'm just going to go for the one shield farm down here. This way I can guarantee switch and put the Typhlosion onto the A9. It all just comes down to whether what they have in the back can win with a shield advantage, and apparently it cannot, as the opponent resigns the match. And now some final thoughts on Shadow Typhlosion and its viability in the Open Ultra League. As I mentioned at the start, that 97.9% win rate in the 1-0 shield is extremely impressive. However, when it comes to actual games of GBL, sure, there are some games where you're going to be able to get that 1-0 shield situation, but there are definitely going to be others where you're not going to have that spot and you're going to be in even shields or even down a shield. So as a closer, Shadow Typhlosion can put in a tremendous amount of work in the right situations. Like you saw it a couple times in the battles, it could put in some work. However, in those even shield type situations, or even if it's down a shield, the lack of bulk is extremely evident, and it does make it a lot tougher to use. So Shadow Typhlosion, I would definitely classify as a mon that's improved, but a mon that's probably more for fun than for climbing, just due to the fact that there are, thanks to the buffs to fire types, a lot of really good fire types in the Open Ultra League. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is sincerely appreciated, so thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.